What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson, and the New York Giants signed an offensive tackle today in response to the loss of Andrew Thomas. Now, of course, we all know during the week, devastating news, Andrew Thomas undergoes season-ending surgery on his foot. He's going to be done for the year. What are the Giants going to do at offensive tackle now? Well, so far it sounds like they're going to go ahead and elevate Josh Ezeudu to start at left tackle. But what if we run into some trouble with Josh Ezeudu? We definitely needed some depth. The Giants went ahead and added some depth with 11-year NFL veteran Chris Hubbard today, signed him off of the San Francisco 49ers practice squad. So, a little bit of depth there, backup player who can maybe provide some snaps. We'll go ahead and break down Chris Hubbard and what he could bring to this team and what the signing means for the Giants, but to be honest, it doesn't mean a whole lot. This is a backup who probably won't see the field for the Giants this season, and this is somebody who they signed probably only in the event that they have to move Jermaine Illuminor over to left tackle, which they clearly don't want to do. They want to keep him at right tackle. But we'll go ahead and react to this news of the Giants signing Chris Hubbard and discuss the most recent injury report, because it sounds like Malik Nabers trending the right way, or is he? He cleared concussion protocol, now dealing with a groin injury, so we do have to talk about that as well, and his status is up in the air for Sunday's game. Meanwhile, Devin Singletary looks like he's playing. So, a lot to discuss in this episode. Let's waste no more time. Alex, how are you doing today, my friend, and what is your initial reaction to the New York Giants signing Chris Hubbard?
My initial reaction was, who the hell is that? To be quite serious. Guys, Chris Hubbard, he's not really much, okay? You're not going to believe this. When he was drafted, 2013. More than 10 years ago, he was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Actually, not even drafted. He was actually an undrafted free agent out of Albany, I think. Really old veteran player here, 33 years of age. And look, the Giants are just bringing in someone with a pedigree of experience and coming from San Francisco, coming from I think at the very least, they want someone that can step in and be a decent run blocker. Not expecting anything from a player like this. He is probably not going to play a snap for the Giants. He's an emergency option with experience. That is all Chris Hubbard is to this team. It is going to be Josh Ezeudu. It's going to be Jermaine Illuminor. It's going to be Evan Neal. And even Jake Kubas could get an opportunity. So, right now I just don't. This is kind of an under-the-rug type of signing, just to have an experienced depth piece who's played on multiple systems, multiple schemes, multiple teams. Practice squad guy, starting guy, bench guy. He's been every single thing you could imagine over the last 10 years. The fact he's made it this long is kind of impressive in of itself. Most of his snaps, as you mentioned, come at right tackle. Almost 3,500 snaps at right tackle in his career. He does have over 4,000 total snaps. So, as I mentioned, lots and lots of experience. The Giants will be looking to just avoid any possibility of him playing it down, right? Andrew Thomas, that loss, catastrophic. Probably ends our season prematurely. However, you get Malik Nabers back. You see what you can do. Hopefully, Josh Ezeudu can hold his ground against the Eagles, who are going to be sending pressure, going to have to chip block. That takes a tight end out of the equation. Now you don't have enough space or as much kind of personnel to create confusion for opposing defenses. That's partially why our offense has looked a lot better at times, is because we've actually been able to use all of our playmakers instead of having to chip block and take a tight end out of the equation and, less receivers and, less space to manage if you're an opposing defense. So, looking at the Giants right now, what they have to do, I think they got to situate stuff on the ground. They have to do a good job running the football. They're going to run to the right side a lot behind Jermaine Illuminor, I imagine. They don't want to break it up. Clearly, they don't want to break up that combination they have on the right side, which has a lot of chemistry, and it's been looking pretty solid. So they're going to see if they can just fare, see if they can survive. Now, a lot of people want Evan Neal to be starting. We discussed this yesterday. Should he start at left tackle? Guys, he hasn't played left tackle in over 2 years. And the NFL, as we know, you want to use his own experience as an example. It's a lot different than college. You know what I mean? He came from college and absolutely sucked in the NFL, despite having all the tangible traits, being a winner his whole life, having everything he needs to be successful. He was horrible. And now you want to put him at the most important offensive line position with no experience in the NFL and having not played it for 3 years, right? 2 years, whatever amount of time. That is a disaster waiting to happen, right? I don't think that's a good idea. Should he be cross-training? Sure, absolutely. But Josh Ezeudu, good luck, buddy. Hopefully we pray to God Carmen Brasillo has worked some sense into him in terms of just helping him develop, because last year Josh Ezeudu was a turnstile. He got Daniel Jones injured. Mostly My entire take that was about Jermaine Illuminor starting left tackle, my entire opinion behind that wasn't because I think it's the right move for the offensive line, but I think it's the right move to keep Daniel Jones healthy. If they're going to play Daniel Jones and they're going to keep him on that football field and they're going to start him, they cannot let him get hurt. And the best way to not let him get hurt is to protect his blind side with the best possible option available. That is Jermaine Illuminor. That's the only reason I think that's a fine idea. But I do understand not wanting to break it up, kind of mess with the chemistry. See if Ezeudu can step up to the plate. Ask you this, Anthony. Based on what you've seen from the offensive line, Carmen Priscillo, are you expecting a lot better performance from him? I am, just because of what we've seen, but I got to see it to believe it.
No, I'm with you. Listen, Carmen Bricillo has done a lot for the New York Giants. In my eyes, I think that this offensive line plays like a unit. Last year it seemed like a bunch of individuals just fighting to do their jobs and not doing their jobs well at any point during the season, just all struggling to do an individual job. But now this season, it just feels like everybody's playing and doing one job together. So can Carmen Bricillo get something out of any of these guys, whether that be a Chris Hubbard? Again, I don't think we see him on the field at any point this season. I think this is just necessary depth. But if more injuries occur on the offensive line, and reminder, guys, we've seen a lot of injuries pile up on the offensive line before, we could end up seeing Chris Hubbard. All it takes is one more injury, whether that be an Illuminor or that be a Josh Ezeudu or an Evan Neal. If he somehow gets hurt during practice, if somebody else gets hurt, then we could see Chris Hubbard. But talking about those guys, Ezeudu, of course Evan Neal, can they turn it around under this different coaching? That's always been the hope. When the Giants hired Carmen Bricillo, Alex, we wanted him to unlock something in these young guys. The Giants invested a first-round pick into Evan Neal. They invested a third-round pick into Josh Ezeudu. They did that in the same draft class, and they invested a fifth-round pick into Marcus McKethan in that draft class. They ended up cutting him this offseason. So that in that 2022 NFL draft, that was Joe Schoen trying his damn hardest to fix that offensive line overnight. It didn't work. That's the reality of the NFL. You're not fixing any unit, any position group, any side of the ball overnight. It takes time, and it took a lot of time for the Giants. It took 3 off seasons for Joe Schoen, but here we are. Finally, the offensive line has been competent. Now the problem is, when it takes so much time to build a unit, you often get the unit built and then you add depth. The Giants just built the unit. They don't necessarily have the depth yet. So with Andrew Thomas going down, it's a little bit of a scramble and it is a little bit concerning. But I do have faith here because of Carmen Bricillo. Sometimes you don't need the best depth in the world to have that next man up mentality and respond to an injury if you have good coaching. And I feel, and you feel, and we all feel, that the Giants finally do have good coaching on the offensive line. So there is potential here for Andrew Thomas to step out of the lineup and one of these guys to step in and just at least be serviceable. Because last year when Thomas went down, it wasn't even close to serviceable. It was a disaster, no matter who was playing left tackle. Whether it was Ezeudu, Justin Pugh, didn't matter. Whoever was going out there and playing left tackle for the Giants last year was getting the work. This year, though, I think we could see Ezeudu hold his own in some regards. I think if Evan Neal gets on the field, he can hold his own as well. Not because I'm super confident in them as players based on anything that I've seen from them in the past, but because I just think the Giants have a better blocking scheme in place now with Carmen Bricillo that helps mask the limitations of some of their offensive linemen. They've just done a great job. I mean, if you watch the way that this team has been blocking the last few weeks, Alex, it's straight up just been everybody slide right. Andrew Thomas, you're on an island. You got this. And Andrew Thomas can hold down that island. So now they're going to have to change that scheme. It's not going to be everybody sliding right. It's not going to be Andrew Thomas one-on-one with the best pass rusher. They're going to have to try and come up with a new scheme. But that's where I feel confident. I think that Carmen Bricillo has implemented a bunch of great blocking schemes throughout his career, during his time in New England, during his time in Las Vegas, and this season with the New York Giants. The scheme truly does matter on the offensive line. That's what my biggest takeaway has been through the first 6 weeks of the season. So yeah, the scheme is going to have to change tremendously with Andrew Thomas out of the lineup, but I trust in Carmen Bricillo to implement a solid pass protection, pass blocking, and run blocking scheme to that matter. I expect him to implement a nice scheme that maximizes the potential of his players and limits their weaknesses. So yeah, maybe we could see Josh Ezeudu take a step. I'm not saying he's going to take a step and become Andrew Thomas's full-time replacement or an elite left tackle, but can he take developmental steps towards becoming serviceable? Absolutely. And hey, as a serviceable offensive lineman in the NFL, you could make a great living and have a long career. If Josh Ezeudu can develop into a decent tackle, he'll be with the Giants for the next 6 years. He'll remain Andrew Thomas's backup, right? He'll just stay here and keep signing multi-year, low-cost contracts so the Giants have insurance at tackle. This is a huge opportunity for Ezeudu, and if he rises to the occasion and over the next 11 weeks plays some decent football, again, just average is all he needs to play, he'll cash in on his next deal, and the Giants will feel very comfortable signing him to an extension so that he can continue to be Andrew Thomas's backup. So that's something that you really do need to keep an eye on. And the same goes for Evan Neal. If you ask me, Evan Neal is probably gone after the season. I can't see a world where they feel comfortable putting him out on the field at any point this year because they're so hesitant to do so right now. And if they have to and he doesn't play well, they're really not going to want to bring him back in the following season. I just think that it's best for both parties to move on. I think Evan Neal, if he does turn his career around, it's going to be somewhere else. He's already been in battles with Giants fans, whether it be on social media or speaking to reporters. He doesn't like the fans. The fans don't seem to like him very much. I don't see Evan Neal really turning things around here, although I hope I'm wrong. And if I am wrong, then it's probably because Carmen Brasillo found a way to unlock something in him. Again, this is a kid who, Evan Neal, stepped into the NFL with loads of potential and loads of talent. He hasn't found a way to maximize any of that talent, and a lot of it hasn't been his fault. He's dealt with a ton of injuries. He's dealt with poor coaching, poor offensive line play around him, and poor quarterback play around him. All of those factors have held back Evan Neal. So to some extent, you got to feel bad for him. But at the same time, you were drafted top 10. You got to be better than the worst. And he's just been the worst. And that's the unfortunate reality of it. Maybe there's time for him to turn it around. Maybe he needs a position change to guard or to left tackle. Maybe one of those things can unlock something in Evan Neal. But at the end of the day, I just feel like the burden has become too heavy for him. There's been too much battling in New York for him. Maybe a change of scenery works best. But if we do see him on the field this year, man, I hope he proves us all wrong. That would be such an awesome comeback story. I might not like Evan Neal a whole lot because of the comments that he made last year, but I really do hope that I have a reason to like him by the end of the season.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna be the rare positive one in this kind of discussion because I've been very judgmental and critical of Evan Neal, and rightfully so. He hasn't given us many reasons not to be. But I will say this: Evan Neal is 24 years old. Evan Neal has suffered multiple injuries to his ankles and feet. He's got a bad break. First 2 years he had Bobby Johnston as his offensive line coach, and we saw what he did to this offensive line. Now he's doing better with Washington, and God bless him. I don't know how, but he's pulling it off. But something happened with the Giants, whether it was the coaching, the technique, maybe the personnel didn't fit the play style, the personnel didn't fit his scheme. Who knows? It could be a variety of reasons. Maybe Bobby Johnson went to the drawing board and figured out what he did wrong over the offseason and corrected it and fixed it. Clearly he's a good dude. Brian Dable is one of his best buddies. He had to fire him, unfortunately, but it was just the reality of the situation. Maybe he went to the drawing board and figured it out. Good for him. But Evan Neal, that talent didn't just disappear, guys. That talent is buried. It's under a whole lot of baggage. It's under a whole lot of dirt. But that talent is in there somewhere. Now, Carmen Brasillo has gotten a lot of talent, a lot of upside from players that, probably weren't supposed to be that good. Greg Van Roten was historically a horrible player. He's gotten competency out of him. Jermaine Illuminors, he's turned into a very, very solid right tackle. JMS is having a nice bounce-back season as a second-year player. Essentially, honestly, I think this is JMS's rookie season. That's how bad last year was. I don't even factor last year into his equation. John Running's looking like the player we signed. $10 million per year for that level of adequacy at left guard. Sign me up any freaking day. And Andrew Thomas has been stellar until the injury, obviously. When it comes to Evan Neal, is he gone next year? This is how I kind of envision this. And oddly, the Giants have no interest in cross-training him because I think they want him just getting one position down. And I get that. You know what I mean? Like, they don't want him at left tackle, at right tackle, at guard. And I'm a proponent of cross-training, see if he kind of takes anything. But I get the perspective here. He's spent 2 years developing a right tackle. All he knows is that position in the NFL. So let's get that spot down and then figure out if we can move him to a different position. The question is he going to get a chance here? Well, my money's on Josh Ezeudu is not going to play very well, based on the fact that he hasn't been very good in the past. And historically, that's kind of, I'm just using my logic here on history. If he plays well, Evan Neal doesn't have to play it down, and that's great. Giants found a solution. If he doesn't play well, Jermaine Illuminor is going over to left tackle, and you're going to find, our good friend Evan Neal at right tackle once again. So with that being said, I think that he's been humble, and he said some bad stuff last year, and he called a sheep, and he's a lion. And listen, I don't hate his confidence, right? I think he was backed into a corner, and he's a 23-year-old kid, and he said some dumb shit. Excuse my language. That's exactly what happened. He was immature, and he was, for the first time in his life, he said, I think yesterday, was a loser. He would win his entire life. His entire life, he'd been the dominant one, the alpha, the winner. And for the first time, he was facing adversity as a loser. And I know it kind of sounds bad when you say it like that, but it's just the truth. And I think for the first time, he kind of sat back and reacted to that reality. And he reacted to it in a public fashion that only made him the public enemy number one. He's since apologized, and he's since said, I regret that. And, he's doing his thing behind the scenes, and he's been humble, and he hasn't said anything, and he's working his way back into the equation. Evan Neal is way too young to give up on, but he's also injury prone, and there are some other concerns here. Can he even survive a game without getting hurt again? That's another conversation to have, but we have to see it first. From a mental standpoint, this is not the end of Evan Neal's story. From a physical one, I don't think so either. But I think he's going about it the right way right now, staying quiet, staying humble, working behind the scenes, doing his thing. Am I saying he's going to bounce back and be a good player? Absolutely not. But I wouldn't rule it out. And I wouldn't rule out him having a renaissance at some point, within the next couple of years. And as you said, maybe it takes a change of scenery for him to get there. But the Giants are treating him like you should a rookie, or you would a rookie, not should, but would a rookie, not throwing him into the fire immediately. And right now they're being patient. They're letting him grow, letting him build confidence, letting him prepare, and not allowing him to be demoralized every Sunday like they were the first 2 years. They just had nobody else. That was the problem. By the way, Matt Parrott starting for the Broncos now somehow, and looks decent. So maybe it was a coaching thing, right? A lot of guys really struggled. So you kind of look at Carmen Brasillo and what he's done. The reason I'm speaking positively about Evan Neal is not because of Evan Neal. It's because of Carmen Brasillo and what he's done so far with this offensive line. So if I'm going to bet any money on Evan Neal, I'm not really betting it on him. I'm betting on Brasillo's ability to develop him.
Man, F it. Let's bet on Evan Neal, baby. Evan Neal was a demon at Alabama, bro. This guy was a dog. I remember the film. I'm not forgetting about it. You know what? It might have been 4 years ago at this point. Screw it. I don't care. Let's go ahead. Let's turn back the clock. Let's look at Alabama film on Evan Neal, and let's get hyped for the machine that is Big Evan Neal and his eventual return to the field. Screw it. I'm changing my tone. I'm hyped for it. I'm excited, and I am expecting the career resurgence from Evan Neal after being coached by Carmen Brasillo. Kid had way too much talent. Everything's gone wrong for him. Injuries, bad coaching, bad players around him. Screw it. Evan Neal, the resurgence, it's on the way. I'm calling it now. When it happens, everybody refer back to this video. Come back to the comment sections and say, man, Tony called it. He knew it. He knew Evan Neal still had that dog in him because he does. It's just buried down underneath a bunch of sheep. But once that dog eats all of those sheep, it's going to rise to the top as a wolf. There we go, baby. Evan Neal, comeback season starts right now. Can't wait for it. It's going to be great. I don't even know if we'll see him on the field this season, but you know what? Screw it. Figured I'd hype him up anyway. Let's have some fun. Let's hope for the best. Like I always say, as long as these guys have a red stripe down the middle of their helmet, and that helmet's blue, and they have an NY on the side of it, I'm rooting for them. Even if they suck, I'm still rooting for them. Same thing with Daniel Jones. He's got the helmet on, so I root for him. But I always root for the team first. And Evan Neal becoming a decent player, that would be great for this team. So I hope that it happens. At the end of the day, that's all I want to see is this team win some games. Like this game on Sunday, Alex. Big game for the New York Giants facing, guess who? Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles coming to town. Saquon's return to MetLife. You know he's going to get booed. He said he doesn't think he's going to get booed, but goddamn it, I'll promise you one thing. That man is getting booed on Sunday. Giants fans do not like Saquon Barkley anymore, and I don't blame them because he went to the one team in the world that he shouldn't have gone to. If he wanted to make sure that Giants fans still liked him after he left, he shouldn't have gone to Philly. A piece of me dies every time the New York Giants lose to Philadelphia. That is the number one thing in the world that I dislike, is the Philadelphia Eagles and their awful fans. I think that they are the scum of the earth, the Philadelphia Eagles. I hate them. If we lose to them this weekend, you guys are going to see me crash out on this podcast. It's going to be ugly. It might be worthwhile to tune in and watch, but it's going to be ugly. So that's kind of my whole piece there on this Eagles game. But Malik Nabers, Alex, sounds like he's going to play. Actually, we went into this, started recording. We're like, okay, now it's up in the air because of this groin. While we were recording, he said he's ready to go. He's going to play. He's suiting up on Sunday. Groin injury, no big deal, no problem. Alex, anytime touchdown, you taking it for Malik Nabers?
Oh, yes, obviously. Lee Nabers is an absolute freaking touchdown merchant. Love that for him. He was dogging Deontay Banks and Cordell Flott in practice yesterday. I mean, listen, as long as Nabers is on this football field and he's healthy, he is going to get not only the majority of snaps, but he's going to get like all of our red zone targets too. I loved how the Giants expanded Wan'Dale Robinson's game. I'm not expecting Darius Slayton to have much of a role with Nabers coming back. Maybe he gets a couple throws here and there. But Nabers after the catch is electric, elusive, majestic even. And I think that, looking at the situation at hand with the offense, it's going to be a lot of yak, man. Lots of shorter concepts, intermediate concepts. The deep shots are going to be far and few in between, especially if the offensive line struggles on the left side. But I'm taking the Nabers touchdown for sure. And, about Saquon Barkley, I wouldn't have cared if he went to any other team. But you know what? Anthony, I'll say this. Saquon Barkley, one of the Eagles, may end up becoming the best thing that happened. You want to know why? Because they got to pay his freaking salary now. And the Eagles are 3-2, and they look like dog crap. And they are losing, and they're barely beating the Browns, and they owe Saquon so much money. So, absolutely. Am I happy he went to the Eagles? No, because I hate the Eagles, and he was a Giant. He was one of our favorite Giants. But in the end, his contract may end up stopping them from signing a cornerback or signing a safety or signing an offensive lineman or signing somebody else, or extending one of their top receiver. This is a situation that ultimately may end up becoming pretty favorable for the Giants because we didn't pay him that contract and they owe him a lot of guarantees. So maybe it ends up becoming pretty good for us at the end of the day. And they're still a bad team. He didn't change anything for them. They're still not good right now. Of course he's a great player and he does a lot for them on offense, but they're not doing so well. So I'm not too upset that the Eagles, because they're paying him a lot of money to still lose some games and not look so good. Jalen Hurts has been very, very mediocre this season so far, making a lot of bad decisions, turning the ball over, all sorts of things. Eagles look like they're trending in the wrong direction personally, and overpaying an aging running back sounds good to me. I'm fine with it right now. I don't know. Maybe maybe you have a different perspective, but I kind of feel like that's the silver lining of this situation.
I think that the Eagles made a mistake signing Saquon Barkley. I think that's clear cut and dry. They paid him a ton of money, and the New York Giants did the right thing by letting him go. Look at what they've got already in Tyrone Tracy. That's serviceable as a running back. That's actually really high upside. You do not need a superstar running back to win games in the NFL. You would like to have one, sure, but it's a luxury. And this is a Giants team that can't afford luxuries right now. They gotta own the Toyota Prius before they can own the Maserati. The Giants can't have a Maserati parked in that dinky little garage. You ever seen that meme, Alex, where it's that really crummy house with the little overhang garage and the Bugatti just sitting there, and it's so out of place and it shouldn't be there? That's what the New York Giants were with Saquon Barkley. Why do you have the Bugatti when you've got that kind of a house, right? You need to have a nice mansion before you get the Bugatti. The Giants didn't have the mansion. They just had the tractor trailer kind of home here. So, let's up our game. Let's build out the rest of this roster. In 3 years from now, 4 years from now, rather 5 years, whenever Ashton Jeanty hits the open market in free agency, then we add the luxury running back. Then we add that piece to the puzzle. But that's not where the Giants are right now. They can't just be signing luxury running backs. They got to build out the rest of the roster. They needed a WR1. They still need a QB. They needed to upgrade their offensive line. They needed to upgrade their defensive line. They needed to upgrade their secondary. Well, crap, they did 3 of those things. They upgraded the offensive line, defensive line, and secondary. Now they have a decent team. So maybe next year or the following, then they want to add a little luxury piece to the equation. They'll be in position to do so. That's just not where they were for the last 5 years with Saquon Barkley. So it's better to let somebody else pay him while he hits the second half of his career and inevitably feels this decline and regression in his game. Giants don't need to be on the other end of that. They don't need to receive that regression. So here we are. Now it's going to be on Sunday. Giants versus Saquon. I hope he fumbles. I hope he runs for -5 yards in total on the game. And I hope the New York Giants punch the Eagles in the mouth and knock out all of their teeth. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I want to see too. We'll see how we can kind of beat them. They're not, like I said, they're a floundering team. The Giants have their own issues, obviously. Is Daniel Jones going to be the consistent one or the inconsistent version? We just never know which version of him we're going to get on any given Sunday. So hopefully he steps up and plays well. Maybe, Anthony, maybe we're so lucky he throws his first touchdown at MetLife since I become a father. Like, for God's sake. Just... I don't want to go too far into that because I'm feeling pretty good today, and I don't want to go down that road because it's emotional and torturous and scary. This has to end. he's got to throw a touchdown at MetLife sooner or later, right? Or is he going to end his career with the Giants having not thrown a touchdown at MetLife since he signed his big contract? It has to end this week. It has to. Maybe even gets 2. How about that? The odds are probably pretty good on that. If you're a sports betting man, I'd throw a touchdown, +1 touchdown for Daniel Jones this week because he has to end at some point. And look, the Eagles are giving up points. Their defense is not that good. Their secondary, I mean, they have James Bradbury out there playing safety now. Darius Slay, I think he was injured. They're not a good football team. I don't think that they're a team like the NFC East in general is kind of bad aside from the Commanders, and Eagles and Cowboys are kind of flopping hard right now, and they're looking like they're about to explode with all their financial situation. I mean, Jalen Hurts' contract is an absolute horror show. They have dead money. They have like void years built into that deal at like $60 or $70 million cap hits. Like they had to win. This was their window to win with Jalen Hurts. It's closing fast before that money catches up, and they're going to have nothing to spend. They have to draft out of their minds to get this thing back on track. Now they can. I think they end up firing Nick Sirianni if it keeps getting worse. But Eagles not looking so good, man. Mike McCarthy not looking so good with Dallas either. So it's kind of an interesting situation. Did not think the Commanders would suddenly rise to the top of the pack here, but Jaden Daniels is my guy, man. I was saying it for months. Giants couldn't get him. Really unfortunate, but here we are with Nabers. I'm not upset at all about it. I think he's gonna have a big weekend.
He's going to have a big weekend, and the Giants are going to beat the Eagles. That's my official prediction, all right? It's going to be because of Malik Nabers that the Giants find the win. No, listen, though, you're right. Like, it's a bummer that the Giants didn't land their future franchise quarterback. Like, obviously, we were all upset about that, but we were all really excited to get Malik Nabers, and we still are. And, hey, sometimes the timing doesn't work out on the QB one-off season, then it works out on the next. You never know. Maybe the Giants end up landing somebody in the middle of the first round next year, similar to where Patrick Mahomes was drafted. You know, he was a mid-first round pick. I think he went, 10th? So, I mean, I guess not mid-first round, but still. You know, you don't always have to have a top 3 pick to land a franchise quarterback. Sometimes they fall into your lap elsewhere. Maybe it'll happen for the Giants. I'm not saying that it will. I'm not saying they're going to draft the next Patrick Mahomes. All I'm saying is you just never know when you're going to get lucky in the NFL. It's all about, this is my favorite quote. I refer to this all the time in my day-to-day life from Tom Coughlin. Luck is just timing meets preparation. That's all it is. So the Giants, all they have to do is keep preparing this roster to welcome in a rookie quarterback, keep preparing by scouting those rookie quarterbacks. Eventually the timing will be right, and they will get one eventually. That's your way of coping if you are a New York Giants fan hoping to see this team draft a quarterback. Timing means preparation. Shout out to Tom Coughlin, eligible for the Hall of Fame next year. I hope he gets in with Eli Manning. That would be just an incredible moment. But I think that about wraps it. Again, Singletary's probably, I think he is cleared to play this weekend. Malik Nabers said he's playing. Sounds like Brian Burns is playing. Giants are mostly healthy outside of the Andrew Thomas thing. And here we are hoping to see the resurgence of Evan Neal, the breakout of Josh Azidu, and the punching in the mouth of the Philadelphia Eagles. That's just about going to do it for us. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, we'll catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.